This is SSN.
Story Studio Network.
Hi, my name is Pamela Fuselli, and I'm the host of Popping the Bubble Wrap. Are you the person in your family who worries about the safety of others, about buying safety products and using them? Are you yelling, "Yes, that's me"? This is the podcast for you. Raising a child or children can be a hair-raising undertaking, and keeping them safe is a priority. Parachute's Popping the Bubble Wrap podcast explores what you really need to think about as a parent or caregiver, and provides easy tips on prevention strategies. No bubble wrap here, though. Everyone falls, don't they? Who hasn't lost their footing or tripped? Toddlers and young children fall more often as they learn to crawl, walk, and run. It's all part of developing cognitive and motor skills, but there are certain types of falls we want to prevent because they cause serious injuries and are sometimes fatal. We're talking about things like falls out of windows or off balconies and falls downstairs. There are ways to prevent these falls without resorting to bubble wrapping your kids. Find out how in this episode. Joining me today are Lillian, Jenn, and Justin. Thanks so much for being part of Parachute's Popping the Bubble Wrap podcast. I would imagine that falls are part of your everyday life. Kids fall, dust themselves off, get back up again. But sometimes these falls can be serious. So Lillian, maybe I'll start with you. Can you tell me about the types of falls that happen in your house and what falls concern you? I know you have 2 boys under 5, so there must be a lot of falls in your house.
Yeah, the biggest concern we had was the stairs. We live in a house, the basement is blocked off with a door, but going up to the second level, it's just an open space. So we had bought 2 baby gates, one for the bottom of the stairs and one for the top of the stairs. It turns out my kids weren't interested in going into the stairs, so we never really put it to good use. But buying the baby gates was challenging. We had bought the first one, and it had these little diamond holes in it. And my older son, he decided that it was a climbing wall, so he would put his little fingers and toes into it. And we didn't realize as adults when we bought it that their little hands and feet could possibly fit into those little holes, but they can. So he used to climb it, not to go down the stairs, but just because it was like a climbing wall for him. The other one was a solid gate. That one was great in that you can't scale it, but wasn't great because he would throw his weight against it, and eventually he would just push it over. And then when he knocked it down, it was, "Congratulations, look what I did."
He
would
proud
tell
of
us
himself.
about, yeah. So that was with the stairs. We did have a fall at our house. My older son fell off his change table.
Right.
So I panicked. He was only 4 or 5 months old at the time. He head first rolled off, hit the diaper genie, and then bounced down to the ground. And so I panicked, thinking I killed my kid, but he turned out to be okay. No concussion, nothing broken. I think it was just, he was shocked. I was more scared than anything else.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be scary. And Justin, I see you nodding and smiling to Lillian's story. What's your experience been with falls in your house? You have a couple of young children.
Yeah, so we have a couple different options for where they'd like to play it dangerously. We have a playground out back, and then our stairs are carpeted, which we've been looking to get rid of that carpet for some time now, but we haven't done it yet. So on the carpeted stairs, as you turn around the corner, there's a ledge there that's a little slippery, and it's been not just the little ones falling down that one. So from time to time, if you're wearing socks or if you're kind of in a hurry, and you step on that little bit of an edge, you just kind of you're scooting right out from under you. So that one's got us a few different times, and when the girls have fallen from there, it's kind of like a 4-step landing from there, and it's just a bit of a tumble. It sounds louder than it actually is, and that's one that we still need to solve for, and getting just hardwood put in there is kind of our goal. The other one is the backyard. We have the playground. It's not a sort of run to Toys R Us and put it together type of playground. It's more of one of those, hey, I have a wooden playground that I made some time ago. Would you like this thing? And I reinstalled it, and it's a little wonky, but it holds up. It can hold a grown man, but I'd say it wouldn't pass a lot of safety ratings, but the girls have been great when it comes to playing and climbing and getting stronger using that. I think the only person that's really fallen off of that is me. But yeah, I think there's I put in some safety posts so that when they're up in the landing part of the play area, they won't just be hanging out and feel like they can just fall out. There's a bit of safety precaution taken with an extra railing that they can hold on as they climb in. It does have some wooden ladders, more of like a rope ladder that they could, once they got strong enough, they could use, but when they were younger, they wouldn't even think about it, so they climbed up the actual slide and seemed to be working for them. We kind of wanted to take let's treat our girls like they can get messy, get bumped up, pick themselves back up. So we were okay with some minor falls and not, overprotecting them in that way, just making sure that the big ones were accounted for with the stairs. So we obviously have like the baby gates and things like that at the top of the big stairs inside the house, and for the basement as well. But they've seemed to have used the awareness of the dangers associated with the playground to associate that with any of the other areas in the house where they might fall. There has been some funny falls over top of our couches, the way they're situated in the living room, where one of our daughters, I have 2, 5 and 3, the 3-year-old fell over, sort of mimicking what the 5-year-old was doing, and she just kind of got stuck in between this.
See, that
the toys
me.
And in between the toys and the with her feet up, still hanging kind of up on the side of the couch. So that was really the scary one, where it's
that scares me a lot, because I did exactly that when I was actually my daughter's age. I was about 2 and a bit, and I was out of a bath, soaking wet, naked, ran onto the couch, and I hydroplaned off the top of it.
Yeah.
And I went over the side, and I came up, and my arm was bent all the way in the middle. I had a pretty nasty green stick, or the fracture that needed reset. And so couch safety, especially, there's something about furniture and playing on furniture that's always been a huge fear of mine, because I don't, as a parent, want my kid obviously to break an arm, but I also have been a kid with a broken arm, and it definitely ruins a summer. And unfortunately, I mean, what we have done is, and I'm looking around my basement right now, and I have a pickler triangle, we have a climbing wall, we've got another smaller climbing wall. Our philosophy has really been that we think it's important for her to have that spatial awareness. And so we actually tried to incorporate as much safe danger into her play space as possible, so she could, practice the climbing and practice falling, which sounds ridiculous, but it, I think it's a life skill that I'm hoping she carries forward, as she continues to grow and thrive. Yeah.
No, that's good. The whole practicing falling, I think it's good for them, right? They learn how to catch themselves. They learn how to, and if you protect them too much, they don't figure that out when they have the real falls.
Yeah, you're right. And I think your stories tell us, we buy couches to sit on and watch TV and sit on when guests come over to have a chat, but kids see the things in our houses so differently in our homes. And they'll use it for play, right?
I just brought up home in batches because we bought them a bunk bed, and I just left it in the hallway to come to work. And my wife sends me a video of them just launching themselves off this mattress in the hallway right now. They just see things different.
Yeah, they do. That's fantastic. Jenn, you talked about, that safe danger, which might be, counterintuitive to some parents. Did you have to sort of train yourself? I'm thinking about the reaction, because some of our, when our kids, when they fall down and get hurt, they look to us like, oh my gosh, should I be crying? Am I hurt? And it really depends on the parent's reaction. What was your reaction initially to some of those safe danger experiences? Like you say, I can see your climbing wall behind you.
Yeah, I was surprisingly relaxed, which I did not think if you'd asked me before I was a parent, if I would have been I was afraid of being a bit of a helicopter parent and kind of protecting her, because that's how my parents were with me. It actually has bothered me when my father would come over, for example, and my daughter would be within 2 feet of a coffee table, and he would have his hands up like, what if she falls? What if she hits her head? What if she this? And I was surprised that I was the one going, so what if she does? Like, as long as she's not hurting herself, I think it's really good for her to kind of learn. So I was surprisingly calm. But the thing is, when you introduce, like we bought this Pickler triangle when she was about 6 months old, she wasn't walking. She was crawling, I guess, but she learned to walk and she learned to climb almost at the same time because she was pulling herself up onto it. So it's not like she all of a sudden went to the top and fell off. I really liked the fact that we had her engaging with this kind of safe danger really early, because it gave her a chance to kind of practice those skills slowly, and that way she's not launching herself over the top of it because she's 2 and has never seen something like this before and goes up past her limits. So the climbing wall, that one gets me a little bit because it's quite high, but again, she can only get up to, a foot maybe off the ground, and then she knows that that's her limit and she goes down. And
right.
There's been no incidents related to either of those two kind of safe danger play.
Yeah. So Lillian, what's your reaction when your kids fall? Are you chill like Jenn is, or do you have to kind of hold yourself back when something happens?
I am very honestly the opposite of Jenn. I panic. I'm one of those mothers that just, is my son breathing? Is he conscious? Is anything broken? Unfortunately, I panic. So I normally have to take a breather. So I wait 3 seconds before I go and approach my kids, simply for me to collect myself, not so much for them. My husband is the opposite of me, so it's a good balance. He's very much, they'll be fine. Look, he can dust himself off.
Right.
I didn't have this as much with my older son because he was a rule follower and he would listen. He understood what no meant. He understood what was acceptable, what wasn't. Whereas my younger son takes everything as under consideration and as a suggestion. He does not care for rules. So he'll climb and scale whatever is within reach. Most recently, he started climbing out of bed. He takes his crib, it's the lowest setting. We had to actually turn his crib around so that the higher part is on the outside and the lower part is right against the wall. But he managed to pretend he's an airplane because he likes airplanes and flying, and he pushes his little body up onto the side rail where it's curved. And he balances on his arms and he puts his body flat like an airplane. And of course, that one time he went head first down into the ground out of the crib. And my husband had to deal with it because I was ready to run up and pick him up and inspect him for bruises and cuts and such. And he was fine. It's hardwood floor upstairs, so like Justin's example, the sound is much worse than the injury. But it's that initial panic reaction of my kid's just flown out head first into the ground.
Yeah, literally flown out of the crib. Justin, what's your reaction when a fall happens in your house?
I listen. I know their sounds now, so because they have so many different opportunities to fall, and for me to have worked on this, I now know when it's a big fall and when it's sort of them playing it up a bit and just kind of looking for attention. Maybe not attention. I think they're like actually maybe feeling something, but I know what their cry is when it's like a seriously, this is a new pain cry. And then I pay a lot of attention to where that fall happens. So if it's in a new environment that they're not used to, I will be quicker in my response time to getting to them. Whereas if it's something that I think they do all the time, or something that's, I think they're just kind of coming to bearings with themselves, I give them a chance to find themselves, calm themselves down as best as possible, and then I'll stroll over and see how they're doing and have them sort of do a 3-point test and, where's the pain? Can you touch the pain? How's that feel? Can you rub it? All right, stand up. I think when I was a very, very young parent, I used to just run over and grab them, and I learned really quickly that it's important for you to understand that even you just grabbing them could cause more harm. So just having a sense to assess is important. And now I assess through the sounds they make immediately. So
yeah,
that's been helpful.
Yeah, looking at your reaction too, I think informs what they think their reaction should be.
Big time. They look at you and they're just like, should I be like panicking right now, or am I good? Am I good? Yeah, in most cases, they're good, and we've been blessed that no serious falls have happened so far. But it's scary, and once you get in better awareness of what those sounds are within your home, I think that changes things. Right now, our biggest concern now is we just got that bunk bed, as I mentioned.
Right.
So there's a whole new, I guess, buffer zone of where these falls going to come from, and how are they going to adjust to that height? So
yeah, and sounds that you might hear for sure.
Yeah, that's going to maybe cause me to hop out of bed a little faster this time.
Well, thanks so much, all three of you. This has been really interesting. I know parents listening will have very similar situations in their home and relate to what you've shared with us around falls and how you've dealt with them, how you've encouraged your kids to still be active and engage in activity, but really being aware of what can cause serious injuries. So thanks for joining us today on the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
November is Fall Prevention Month. Find key tips to prevent children's falls at parachute.ca/childfalls. That's parachute.ca/childfalls.
It's time to open your parachute.
Sandra Newton is the manager of Child Safety Link in Halifax that's committed to reducing the rate and severity of unintentional injuries to children and youth in the Maritimes and in the Atlantic when appropriate. Welcome, Sandra, and thanks for joining me on Popping the Bubble Wrap podcast.
Hello, Pam, and thanks for having me.
I'm sure what we heard our parents discussing is not new for you. What stood out for you when we were talking about some of their experiences in their children falling or the prevention steps that they took?
Yeah, it is always interesting to hear what parents and caregivers do to help prevent those serious falls in the home. And so it was really interesting to hear about the safe risks that they were trying to do within their home, including supporting their child to learn in a safe environment. I think there was someone who was mentioning the safe environment and having them learn around their height limits and that sort of thing. So I thought that was really interesting to hear that. One thing, though, I did want to sort of mention is that although that is a great thing to do and have your child learn in their environment. It goes back to children when they're quite young, is that they really rely on you for safety, for them to be safe. And so they may not quite understand the consequences of what they're doing. So I think it's really great to give them a safe environment. Obviously, you want them in a safe environment, but not to sort of forget that you were there to protect them. So as someone else mentioned, they use different things in their home in different ways, not as intended. And so, just to keep aware. I often think back of dresser drawers. Children use them as stairs, and those could fall on you. So that's okay if you're in a safe environment, but you need to secure that piece of equipment. So I think I just wanted to bring that up about the importance of still understanding that your child may not totally comprehend the consequences of their actions.
Right. And there are things, I think, in the home that parents may or may not think about as potential fall hazards that may cause serious injury. We talk about, falls downstairs and things like that. But there's also, falling out of windows or off of balconies. What are some of the main causes of those serious injuries that the parents really need to pay attention to?
Yeah, so children fall at all ages, of course, and as we've talked about before, we want children to learn and grow and learn from their environment. However, when you're a little baby, you don't quite understand the whole concept of falling. You're just a baby. So we do talk to caregivers about, things like not changing their baby on the bed because they could roll off the bed at any time, and that could cause a significant injury. They might say, oh, that's the first time they ever rolled, but there's always going to be a first time, and so it's unexpected. And so, you really, we recommend that you change them on the floor. And in my own personal experience, I had twins, and so it was always very challenging. And I know I always mentioned to my husband, don't change the children on the bed. And one day he did. And later on, he said, yeah, they almost fell off. I couldn't believe it. And I thought, yeah, that's why I told you not to change them on the bed. And so I guess he just hadn't thought of that. He just realized, oh, that's overreacting. But no, it actually is, it can be significant. And as they get older, obviously the falls down the stairs is really important. But as we mentioned, climbing and exploring, so falls out of windows can be very serious. Obviously, especially if you're in an apartment complex or a bigger complex. And so we often talk to parents about screens in the windows. Often it's thought that, oh, they'll protect my child. My child won't push through those screens. But as you know, they can very easily push those screens out. And then we've heard of tragic circumstances where a child has been significantly injured from falling from a major height.
Yeah, I think people don't realize that the screen is just meant to keep the bugs out of the house and not keep people from falling out of the actual window.
Yeah, and you often hear caregivers say, oh, I never thought of that. And that's something at Child Safety Link, in a way, we just don't want to hear that, to say, we want parents to understand all of these situations. So there's never that looking back with regret, thinking, oh, I just didn't know. So we do try and provide those, somewhat, they're significant tips that are very important. So the falling out the window. So if your child's playing on the sofa, if you've got a sharp coffee table and they're quite young learning to walk, they could really hurt themselves walking into or falling into, either from a height or from the floor, right into that coffee table. So we often talk about, when they're in that toddling stage, to remove your coffee table. We did that. We just got rid of the coffee table because it was just, as they say, an accident waiting to happen. So we're like, we didn't want that to happen. It could have been a serious eye or head injury with those pointy coffee tables. So that's sort of another kind of a fall, but still could be a significant fall.
Yeah, one of the challenges may be for families who rent or might not be able to attach baby gates to their walls because they are renting, or even those who are struggling to make ends meet to afford to buy safety devices like window guards and baby gates and corners for their coffee tables and things like that. What are some suggestions, or what are some of those issues or solutions that these families can take to help to keep their kids safe from falls?
Yeah, this is a significant challenge, and a child safety link, we have heard that financial and other barriers for families, including, like you say, the cost of purchasing baby gates. And in fact, a few years ago, we had some focus groups at Child Safety Link, and that was really reiterated that, that financial barrier is significant. And as you know, gates can be expensive. And as I just mentioned, I had twins, and I found from my own personal experience, buying all that baby equipment at once was really hard financially. And so, obviously I work in this field. I know it's exceptionally important. And so, I made it happen. But, some families may not have that ability to do that. And we really recognize that. We also don't want families, though, we've also heard that they feel guilty that they can't. And that's certainly not something we want people to feel. So I know that families and caregivers are doing everything they can to keep their children safe. And I know they're already looking for sales and coupons and looking for deals. So that's, I think that's an obvious one. I know people are already doing that. We also know that some communities have social media sites that are devoted to community members actually giving away things, or other sites that I guess are like flea markets to give things away or buy or sell. And that could be a really good avenue. However, there are some important tips. I guess I just want to state that although secondhand might work really well, you just have to make sure of several things. And one is to make sure that the gate actually works and there's no broken parts. That's sort of another obvious piece. But checking for recalls is really important. Several safety products, such as cribs and baby gates, have been recalled due to poor design, and I know you know that, but I think that's really important to state. And we know that gates made before 1990 might not be safe to use because of design, and gates that are shaped a certain way, like if they have the diamond shapes or the V openings, those aren't safe. I think that's what was used in my day, and those caused a lot of problems. And there's other gates out there that I remember when I was looking for my own children, where they were designed and marketed solely for pets. And those aren't to be used either because they're not subject to the same standards as
that's a good point.
To protect children. So getting a secondhand gate may be very possible, but we just want to make sure the caregivers are aware of those safety issues. So it might be a possibility. In terms of if you work in an apartment complex that isn't allowing you to use a gate because you might lose your damage deposit, that's another big significant problem. And again, there's no easy answer. And my suggestion at the moment would be to, speak with the building manager to see what is possible, bring them the evidence, bring them the information that we have. I know Parachute and Child Safety Link have this information on our website. There may be other families in the building that you can work with in terms of approaching the building manager with that information. Again, another challenge we've heard is that not necessarily everyone has the internet and access to our website. So I recognize that as also an additional challenge. And so visiting some local agencies such as family resource centers may be a way to get that information and that extra support.
That's really good advice. And I think you make a good point that especially for your first child, there's so much that you can buy. You don't necessarily need all of those things, but there are some key pieces of furniture or products that you really should have for your home that will protect your children from serious falls. And you've given us a lot of good tips If
I could give another one, is that if you're having a baby shower, often it's thought of to get the small baby gifts, but perhaps you could ask for safety products that might be needed in a year or a little bit down the road, but you could ask for the baby gate and the other things at this time. Now, if storage an issue, again, I know that might pose other problems, but if possible, you might be able to ask them as a baby shower option.
That's a good tip. Lots of good information. Thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, thanks so much, Pam. Always lots to talk about.
That's true. so much for listening to this episode. Popping the Bubble Wrap is a podcast of Parachute, Canada's national injury prevention charity, whose mission is for Canadians to live long lives to the fullest by preventing serious and fatal injuries. We release episodes every 2 weeks. Next episode, I'll be talking about why car seats are so complicated. Help us reach parents and caregivers by sharing this link with your friends and families and giving us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Popping the Bubble Wrap is produced for Parachute by Story Studio Network and Eye Contact Productions.
This is Story Studio Network.